In this video, I'm going to be giving you a tutorial on the cost of goods sold, or the COGS setup in Profit Calc. So this would be the cost of your products, and our app has many different options on how to set this up. So you can find this COGS Hub page on the left-hand side menu under COGS Hub. This page here will have all of our integrations and options in which you can set up your cost of goods sold. Now, which option you use is first going to depend on how your cost of goods are calculated. It's just about each store has a slightly different way on how their COGS are calculated. So once we have a good understanding of how it's calculated, we can then filter down the different options which might work for your store. To start off, the easiest ones to set up are the integrations. So this is where your COGS come from a platform, such as any of the ones listed here. We have AliExpress, CJ Dropshipping, Printify, Printful, ShipBob, ShipHero, and Shippo. So if you fulfill your products through any of these providers, these costs can be synced in automatically. For example, if we were to click in CJ Dropshipping here, we can enter in our API keys. There's a few custom settings as well, and then we can toggle this on. And this will ensure that the CJ Dropshipping cost of goods sold are then synced into Profit Calc and viewable in the analytics. But if you don't use one of these integrations, we can set up different options here, which will allow our cost of goods sold to be recalculated based on the Shopify order information synced in. For many merchants, what is called the manual COGS is all they need to recalculate it. So by default, our app will go and sync in the cost per item from your Shopify store and try to fill out as many of the COGS as we can to help speed up the setup process. And so for each of the products and each of the variants, it would just be setting what the cost is. Let's say it's $2.99 or $1.99 per product. You can add additional COGS on top to know these are all calculated based on the quantity in an order. And we can just save it here in the top right. Our app also has options to help speed this up. There's the CSV file, so you can upload a CSV file with all your cost of goods sold. We can update this by, so what that is we can update all of our COGS at once based on the product price. For some merchants, it might be 50% of the product price is always going to be the cost of goods sold. So we can only update ones that don't have any COGS values, or we can replace all of our manual COGS with this option. There's also update by product name. So let's say one product has 100 variants as an example. You want to update them all at once. We can just select the product name, set the COGS for all the variants at once, and then hit submit. Now let's move on to the next level of calculations. And one of the most common ones to set up for merchants is quantity breaks. So the amount gets lower as the more you order at once. So the best way to set this up would be with the COGS by country and quantity on this page here. If we click into this, we can select our product name, the cost of goods sold for this quantity level, and the country name. To note, if the country does not matter, you can enter in worldwide. And we can set the quantity level. So let's say when 2 of the braided necklace are ordered, the cost of goods sold is going to be 10. Applies to worldwide. You can just hit create/update. To note, there are 2 options here, product name and product variant. Generally, product name is the option you want to use, as this means that whatever combination of variants for a specific product are in an order, the quantity break will apply. So let's say the braided necklace has 2 colors, green and blue, and there's 1 green and 1 blue in an order. That brings the total quantity to 2. The quantity break will apply regardless of the variants included in the order, as they all fall under the same product overall. The product variant option would be if the quantity break only applies if there are multiples of the exact same variant ordered. So if we go back to this braided necklace, say as an example, this is a green color, and we only want this quantity break to apply if there are 2 greens in an order. There's also options to speed this up, such as the ability to upload with a CSV file for both the product name option, and this one is for the product variant option here. There's also the COGS by country. So if your store doesn't have any quantity breaks, but the cost of goods sold changes based on the country it was shipped to, the COGS by country will be the option that should be set up. Very similar to the previous option we looked at in terms of creating them, we can set the product name, the COGS, and then the country it was shipped to, and we can set create/update. And there's also the product name and product variant options. Moving on to our last option here, this is the COGS by date. So this would be if, let's say you get an invoice with the total cost of goods sold for a date at a time. Let's say on January the 19th, I get an invoice for 1,000 COGS. I can create this here. And to note, this is separate from the other calculations, so it'll be calculated independently. Merchants will choose this option if they don't want to use any of the other methods, and they just want to enter their total for each day here. Before we move on to the shipping costs, let's check out the other cost of goods sold settings, and I'll point out a few of the relevant settings that most merchants would like to set up. The first section are just additional cost of goods sold fees. Let's say there's a flat fee applied to every order or per product. We can set those up here. A few important settings I want to take a look at is first what we call the database cost of goods sold setting. And just to give a little overview of this prior to reading the setting here, when each order is synced into Profit Calc from your Shopify store, the cost of goods sold is calculated based on any of the current values, such as the manual COGS or the COGS by country and quantity, and that's going to be saved with the order information. So it's going to use whatever current values are set up at that time. So with this setting enabled, it's going to make sure that we use the saved values with each order rather than what's currently saved under any of the COGS options. So as an example, if I head to the manual COGS here and I update this to $10, this is going to apply to all of my orders at once, regardless of when the order was synced in. So if you have cost of goods sold that are changing over time, merchants will enable this option here. The next two options I wanted to point out are what happens when an order is refunded. By default, both the COGS and any amounts that fall under the custom order expense will be lowered or decreased when a refund is issued, as it's assumed that the product can be sent out again. So since the COGS and custom order expense amounts are expenses and they decrease profit, they're going to be lowered when a refund is issued and the profit will be increased. So we can disable this from happening or cause it to not happen when we enable these settings here. Let's move on to shipping costs now. So our app has several options to set up the shipping costs, and to note, all of these expenses will fall under the custom order expense total card. So if we head to the dashboard, I can just show you quickly where that is. It would be this card here, custom order expense, right next to the COGS total by default. So let's head back to the COGS hub page, and there are several options here. And again, it's just going to depend on how the shipping costs are calculated. One of the most common methods is to set up the shipping by country. So if we click into this option here, this will be if your store has either a per product or per order costs, depending on the country the order was shipped to. So let's say, as an example, for each order sent to Australia, there's a $5 per product cost. So $5 for each line item in an order. So it's going to be based on the total quantity of products. And we can set the per order cost. Let's say it's a flat $10 per order. We can just save this here, and that will be applied under the custom order expense. A similar one also applies for the shipping cost by country and quantity. Let's say, depending on the quantity in an order, let's say if there's 3 products, if it's shipped to Australia, the cost is going to be $5. Now for this one, we'll want to set up the quantity for each applicable level. Any other common one is setting up shipping bundles. So these are bundles based on the exact product or products in an order, the quantity, and the country the order was shipped to. So these will need to be set up for each variation of this. As an example, one of the bundles created for this demo store here is that if there's a banded titanium ring and 2 braided necklaces, so it has to match this exactly, and the country is Australia, shipping cost is going to be 2. This can be a useful option if you have bundles of the same makeup that are consistently being sent out. Now to note about the shipping cost as well, as when a refund is issued, these amounts are not decreased, as it's assumed that the shipping costs cannot be given back. Another common one is shipping costs by country and weight. So we can set the country name and the minimum to maximum weight. So as an example, if the weight of an order is between 1 kg and 2 kg, the total cost of shipping is going to be 3. So we can set these different weight ranges for each country. Lastly, there is the shipping method fees. So this is essentially if your store has the shipping provider listed in the method for each Shopify order. You can set the exact name here. Let's say this is USPS Economy. We can set the fee to be $5 every time this shipping title is listed in the order information. So overall, that's an explanation of the cost of goods sold setup in Profit Calc. There are quite a few options, and it's really just going to depend on how your store calculates both its COGS and its shipping costs. Quick note is that the shipping costs are the expenses you pay, and what's listed under shipping revenue and tips in the dashboard analytics is the shipping that the customer pays you. So this is a revenue item here. I also quickly want to mention that if you have any currency conversion for your cost of goods sold or custom order expense amounts, we can head to currency on the left-hand side here, and we can customize this for CJ dropshipping, the manual COGS, custom order expense, COGS by date, as well as Printful, ShipBob, and ShipHero. So we can set the input currencies here. If you have any questions about the setup for your store, just message us in the bottom right here, and I'm hoping this explanation video helped clear up a few things.